Bureau Friends, Ben Tyndall here, and I am joined by Senator Jesse Salomon. Senator, thank you so much for taking the time and visiting. You are the Vice Chair of the Senate Agriculture, Water, Natural Resources, and Parks Committee, and so several of our members are familiar with you, but wanted to give just a second. Would you share a little bit about your background and maybe the district and kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah, so I, in full candor, represent a very urban district, basically North Seattle and suburbs to the north of Seattle. It's a Democratic district, but I got into the natural resource policy field mainly through my interests. I, was a sport fisherman ever since I was a kid, and got really into that. And, had to buy a second chest freezer. Let's just put it that way, to keep all my fish, and also had an interest in environmental issues, environmental policy, and so that kind of dovetailed, and then that sort of tracked my focus here in the Senate.
Oh, that's perfect. So it sounds like getting into the agriculture committee was a good fit and kind of almost a natural fit. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's important to know the committee deals with agriculture, water, natural resources, and state parks. It's not just agriculture.
Absolutely, no.
Although you certainly can't separate water from agriculture.
No, you can't. And I know that, and that was actually one kind of issue I would love to hear your perspective on. So one, you have been an incredibly strong advocate and for protecting and restoring our aquatic habitats, salmon, aquatic vegetation, things like that, et cetera. And a healthy environment and a healthy and thriving water really is a win for everybody. So from your perspective and considering your work and really championing this, how can farmers and ranchers also come on board and be a champion? Like I said, agriculture, farmers and ranchers, they depend on environment, clean water. How can we jump into this conversation and support that work as well?
We're in an interesting sort of environmental time. We're looking at an interesting environmental future, a challenging one. We live in Washington State, which at least on the west side has a lot of water, typically has a lot of water. And the east side, the Columbia River. But at the same time, like you look this year and the snowpack is an incredible decline. We're expecting drought. So I think we need to look at some other places and how they do agriculture. I spent a small part of my childhood in Israel, which is mostly desert, but they have a high agricultural output. They do drip irrigation. It's just highly technical in the way they apply their water and how they use it with the conservation in mind. So I'd be interested in the next few years in terms of how do we help farmers adjust? Are there technological innovations that we can help with in terms of state dollars, grant funding, things like that? And so I'm excited to work with farmers to figure out how we adjust to the new future. There's a lot to be concerned about, but if we don't adapt, we die, and nobody knows that better than farmers.
Right. Oh, and that's a good perspective, and I really appreciate that. And thank you for your work to look at those innovations and bring those in. That is very valuable. Well, can you tell me a little bit about maybe some of the work that's kind of on your radar? So this is your sixth session. I know y'all are walking into this upcoming week being the floor session and spending time on the Senate floor voting bills over to the other side. What are some things that you're engaging in, or maybe some of your priorities that our members could be aware of and be watching with you?
Well, it's been a tough session so far. Hasn't been a whole lot of money for new policies and grants. So I don't have anything too on point right now that's moving. I do have a bill around 6 ppd in tires. So there's a chemical that comes off of tires that has been found to be very deadly to salmon. And I feel like we're investing billions of dollars in culvert remediation and trying to bring back salmon. And so then we have them die in rivers from poison. That makes no sense. So we got to find an alternative for that tire preservative, but we need an alternative that works. So there's no rush to do something that's not going to work. But I have a bill that's going to make sure that when there is an alternative, we can use it, and the tires will be regulated to require the new alternative. I also have I don't think this will be terribly popular with farmers, but I have a bill around a statewide beaver management plan. And I'm working it out with Republicans on the committee. It's not going to pass this year, but the idea is we have places where beavers don't work very well, and we have and we can identify places where they would actually help the habitat, create fire breaks, right? If you have a more wet area in certain places, they can stop fires. And frankly, I always come back to this, they can be good for salmon recovery. So thinking about how do we manage and maybe move beaver populations to the places where we want them.
Yeah.
And less so, or figure out a way to coexist or manage where we don't.
Oh, excellent. Well, no, it sounds like it could have some great implications. So thank you for your work on those. And yes, I know those are things I'm sure that that some of our members will be interested to kind of track and follow as it progresses. So good. Well, I know your time is limited, so I don't want to take too much, but as we kind of wrap up, is there a message that, we have members throughout the state in both the eastern side and western side, but I know I have personally really appreciated hearing from both yourself and others who are more in the kind of urban environments, and hearing your perspective as you represent more of an urban demographic. But I know we have, hearing your perspective on agriculture is very important to us, and I really appreciate that. Is there a message that you might share to some of our members throughout the state as you hit this second half of the session?
I know farming is hard. I know it's very hard to turn a profit. It's a lot of work. It can be frustrating. There's years where it's not successful. So that's not lost on me. I know that the Climate Commitment Act has been consternating in terms of the exempt fuel issue that we're trying to work out, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm committed to working on that solution to make sure that people get reimbursed much more quickly than what they are for the fuel taxes. That said, I think we do need to think about what is the future with climate change, water availability. And what I'd like to do is I'd really like to have a constructive relationship with agriculture in the state, acknowledging that changes are coming and figuring out how we can manage it together. We're not going to get anywhere by trying to ignore climate change. So I think, I'd like to spend some time this interim really talking with folks across the state on how we can work together on this and keep farming viable.
Yes, good. Thank you. I appreciate those words. I know many of our members will as well. And thank you for your time. I'll definitely. So what does this next week is floor session, and then it starts, I believe, on the 14th. Get back into committees or something like that.
Yeah. So we're voting Senate bills off the floor, or we're not, depending on the bill. Exactly. And then we'll hear House bills starting next week.
Okay.
And so we'll sort of do it all over again.
Excellent. Well, Senator, thank you so much for your time. Good luck this week. I know it's a busy one. Really appreciate your work. And thank you for giving us time and chatting with our members throughout the state. It means a lot.
Well, happy to do it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, have a wonderful morning, sir. We will look forward to chatting soon.